are these people?
I did a story Monday night about where I wrote one about housing in South Florida and how many $1 million houses plus there were available on the market. Well, I did a little further research and I did a little bit further search about this to kind of see as a follow-up. And I find this guy, Nick Gurley. Now, Nick Gurley has a website. So this is a little bit biased. He's got a site called Reventure. And he'll explain what Reventure does in a minute. He says, I don't think that people understand what's happening in housing right now in Florida, which has 177,000 listings, which is the highest level on record. More listings ever in the state of Florida than ever. The entire Northeast U.S. has 79,000 listings, which is the lowest level on record. That's a statistic I did not know. People are leaving Florida and moving back north. A structural trend that will likely last years and cause Florida's housing market to decline for an extended period. So go ahead. Did
he miss a zero in there?
He did. But that's okay.
He must have.
We got it.
Okay.
He might have had to do that for. Yeah. And again, this is an analysis from his consulting company. So there may be some bias in there, but he's pulling out the housing supply, right, for these states. And assuming that he's correct, right, and I didn't do his math, but that is a graph. That's a substantial graph to show, again, that they're back in 2018 or so, there were 155,000 houses for sale in Florida. This is 20% more than that. All right. Now, what he says is that the entire housing market got this wrong. Builders, investors, and second and third home buyers flocked to Florida during pandemic thinking it was a stable place to invest and safe. Where they actually should have been buying and building was in the Northeast. Now Florida's housing market is in a housing downturn. Prices are dropping across the state and will likely continue to drop for years due to an oversupply of housing combined with a record lack of affordability. That was what I had talked about, was the glut on how expensive the houses were. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, home prices in the Northeast are going up and continue to go up due to a shortage of housing. For example, in New York, values are up almost 6% over the last year. Meanwhile, Florida's down 2.4%. Wow.
The rent is too damn high.
But this is just the start of declines in Florida, according to Nick, and this is his prediction, because inventory growth is showing no signs of slowing, and the structural reversal in migration will take years to normalize. And he references, all right, that Florida's migration levels are down 80% from their pandemic peak when people were moving to Florida. In 2024, the state registered 64,000 net domestic migration, which was fifth worst level on record, by the way, last year. Look at where it was 3 years prior, right? It was over 250,000. All right, he says the last time something like this happened, it was the 2008 housing bust, and Florida went through a 5-year period of reduced migration. I have a buddy that bought his house during that period in Port St. Lucie, and 10 years later still sold it for a loss. All right, he says, I think this is just a big part of the story that people don't understand yet about Florida's housing market. Everyone is blaming HOA fees, hurricanes, and insurance, and many think it's just a blip that will soon subside. But the true reality could be that Florida is now entering the down cycle of inbound migration, and that down cycle is going to last for years. So don't buy in Florida right now because the prices are going to keep going down, is what he's saying, because the data on his app shows that local home buyers in Florida now need to pay 39% of their gross income on the mortgage and tax costs for buying a house, which is the highest level since 2006-07. Remember where I talked about that you need to have 25 to 30% of your income to get approved for a mortgage? Now they're allowing up to 40% because they can't get approved at 25 to 30. But what ends up happening, he says the highest level since the 2006-07 number, that 39%, that bubble happened when they were allowing mortgages to go out for people that couldn't really afford them because it would be 40% of their gross income, not even net. 39% of their gross income was going to housing. All right. And way above the long-term average of 20. Well, but that's 39% versus the long-term average of 27.
Yeah.
All right. So about a third, like I said, about a third of your income, 25 to 30% of your income. That's right in the range. All right. So that's indicating right now that they're accepting mortgages from people that can't really afford it, which is going to see a super high default rate down the road, which is going to see an even further crash of the market. So if the local buyers are priced out and the migration train is slowed, who's going to support the Florida housing market? The answer, nobody.
Israel.
Who are these people?
That's what I'm asking. Who are these people? No one. That I asked that in my article. Who's buying all these $1 million houses? The answer is nobody. Which is why inventory's through the roof and prices are dropping fast. Not a surprise. Golden Monarch, Florida has fake money. Very funny. Well, some of it's fake money, sure. Reventure is forecasting prices to drop in Florida by about 5% over the next 12 months. Our price forecast score for the state is a 35. Meanwhile, New York is at 55, which equates to a 4.3% increase in housing prices. All right, so very interesting stuff.
Free real estate.
He's doing it to promote his reventure.app, service. And I just mentioned that there were over 2,000 homes for sale of $1 million or more. Who can afford these? I published this last week. Okay, just to kind of pile on to Nick's article. So I thought that was really interesting and a good follow-up to what we had talked about with South Florida housing. I don't know what you're seeing in Northern Florida, Reef, about housing and stuff going on the market. Are you seeing a lot of like for sale signs in your neighborhood and stuff lately?
I mean, not here specifically, but there was definitely a big boom with like housing communities not too far from me that we tried to get into that like wasn't, the numbers just didn't math. The math didn't math, Like you could make all these houses, no one was going to pay them. So,
right.
So what's the point of that?
So that's the first one. Now, it kind of in the similar vein to why aren't things affordable anymore? All right. Let me walk you through how this goes. All right. Now, this has to do with tariffs and Trump. Companies won't itemize their bills to show the tariff amounts and will simply raise their prices. This means Trump can keep pretending and telling you that he's not taxing you. It's just pesky Bidenflation. Number two, Trump cuts deals with some of his favorite billionaires so they don't pay import taxes. They do, though, keep those prices high, of course. You don't know about it because your bill isn't itemized. Meanwhile, mom and pop shops fold because they can't keep up. Sounds like pandemic. Meanwhile, also, you're paying taxes at both ends, both getting taxed when you make purchases, right, and paying your federal taxes. However, Trump keeps telling you that these tariff taxes, which you're not supposed to admit you're actually paying, are how he's going to someday get rid of your federal taxes. There's no plan for Trump to get rid of your federal taxes. He has absolutely no intention of doing it. And of course, meanwhile, Trump rearranges the budget so he can get more tax breaks and have more money and takes the crypto cops off the street so he can steal crypto money from all his followers. He does this by taking your benefits. You're left waiting for Trump to do the nice thing he says he's going to do for you, which he never does. Bezos gets richer, Trump gets richer, Elon gets richer. You're getting poorer with a red hat on your head because you still haven't figured it out. And we did a segment Monday night called Fell for It Again, and I would definitely put a Fell for It Again on that. Anyone that still thinks he's going to deliver, fell for it again. Next, we covered about 5-6 weeks. Well, don't do that, please.
Thank you very much. That's really nice. Thank you.
No.
He is a sick puppy.
Yes, I truly believe he is a sick puppy. So, Arturo Dominguez, another great independent journalist, decolonized journalism over on Substack. A sixth person has died in ICE custody this year alone. This year, this time it's a Haitian woman in the Chrome Detention Center in Miami. We covered a video that we saw from the Chrome Detention Center where they were stacked like 25 in a cell that was built for 5. And Arturo says he's reported on that facility among many others several times. Recently, it was after videos surfaced of migrants begging for someone to help them due to horrific conditions inside. Chrome has a capacity of 500, and last Arturo checked, there were nearly 1,800 migrants crammed into the privately owned detention center. I believe it's a Core Civic owned detention center.
They literally put up an SOS.
Yep. Well, no, that was at CCOT. That was outside CCOT, I believe. Or was that?
Okay.
All right.
The same difference.
I also wanted to note that we've talked about Cop City in the past in Atlanta, RIP to Tortuguita, but he's mentioned here, Cop City is officially opening today. That was earlier this week, made possible only through extreme state violence, including the murder of Tortuguita, clear cutting of forest land, and mass criminalization of protesters, as well as spending $150 million on a project that was originally supposed to cost $30. And over 100,000 signatures in protests throughout the city that were completely dismissed by the city council. But the fight goes on, and support for those facing charges is still critical. And there are 83 plus cop cities being built and in some process of being built overnight throughout the country.
Yep.
In 49 U.S. states, I believe it is. All right. Oh, here you go. You sent me something about Cop City.
Cop City. Bam,
lamb. This
is like the first thing they did.
So exciting that it opened at enormous cost, both in public dollars and human and animal lives, so they can pilot cutting-edge new techniques like running over people with horses at protests. Wait, what?
I wish we were kidding. Suey! Is that how you call pigs? Like that. Unreal. Safety first. Yeah.
Held that to Tortuguita.
Safety first.
Fuckers.
Jesus Christ.
We live in a dystopian hell, folks. Now, the last thing I wanted to bring,
girls, but more violent.
I don't think that the horse girls want the horses to have cops sitting on them and
no, of course not.
Stomping and
they just got a fun little
trampling protesters. Now, we have talked a lot on this show for years about the Teamsters, about UPS. We talked about the strike that never happened in the summer of 2023. We were doing a show then. Yeah, we started in 2021. So we were doing a show then. We had first talked early on about how the Teamsters were trying to take over Amazon, how the UAW messed with John Deere workers and sold out, signed a sellout contract. And then UPS did the same thing with the Teamsters. Teamsters did the same thing with UPS workers, drivers, and warehouse workers in summer of 2023. They ran through a mass... That's his union sound, I guess. But in that summer...
Fucking lollipop kill, bro.
They had practiced striking all month of July and then stopped, and UPS had left the table, the negotiating table, decided to come back with 5 days left before the strike was supposed to start. And on day one, Sean O'Brien and Teamsters caved. It smelled very fishy in the end. In hindsight, it seemed like they had already hammered out a deal in principle somewhere behind the scenes that also involved the UPS pilots. I covered this again extensively then. And one of the criticisms that we had at that point was that it did not protect against automation and did not guarantee a certain number of workers and facilities would be open and continue to be staffed by Teamsters. Well, what we've seen since is the cutting of facilities. We've seen the cutting of 2 facilities last summer, and we covered that. So in, again, August of 2023, we did a 90-minute segment. It's one of the longest segments I ever did on How Do We Miss That, talking about the UPS and how badly most of even progressive independent media got it wrong, because they were all desperate to report on a win.
Yep.
And a win for workers. And it wasn't a win for workers. It was a ramrod. It was a railroading of workers, and they pushed this thing through, and they propagandized the country about what the workers got. The biggest thing was that they kept telling people that the drivers would earn $175,000 a year. That's not true. I mean, a very small number did, but the propaganda went out that this is what they got out of it. They didn't even get the $25 an hour that they were fighting for the part-timers. All right. They only got 7,500 part-timers converted to full-time out of 180,000 part-time workers, when allegedly UPS had the business to do. They were doing massive stock buybacks, and they were massively profitable. They could well afford to have paid these people and brought them on staff and had the work for it. Now what we have, and then once that happened, I said Teamsters sold out when they caved on the master agreement, railroaded it through. Most were clueless then. All right. And that was when I was on a show called Nobody Wants to Work Anymore that I did with Snow Himbo. And I railed about that for about a half an hour. I took some segments on it, and I was going to play them here. I said, you know what? It's not even worth it. Then in 2024, we covered on this show when UPS announced they were closing facilities in Portland and Baltimore and eliminating 1,300 Teamster jobs. So we already knew. It sounds like Reef is dying over there. Good job. So we already knew that they were starting to cut. And shout out to Tom Hall, World Socialist website, who reported then that there was a plan to close a large percentage of their 200 facilities nationwide and get rid of as much as 80% of their workforce. This was already in the works. The first thing that I wanted to note is that there were a couple of people that were claiming that it was because of the tariffs that accelerated this. And that may or may not be the case, but this was already on the books well before Trump was ever elected. This was in the process. Not only that, but UPS also was losing business to Amazon. Amazon decided to have their own fleet and to outsource less and less of their shipping business to UPS over time, which meant that UPS wouldn't need as many full-timers. All right. That was also announced last year. So when I saw this headline, it upset me, but it didn't surprise me. Mayday, Mayday, are the Trump tariffs killing 20,000 UPS jobs? Now, this is out of an Indie Media Award honoree, ScheerPost. Les Leopold, I don't know, but he wrote it. He wrote this on his Substack, right? And this has apparently made its way around to where people are getting it wrong, because it wasn't due to the tariffs that they did this. They're using the tariffs as an excuse to accelerate this timeline. Yeah, but they were already planning to do this. All right. UPS, like every major corporation, is in business to extract as much wealth as possible and shovel it to its shareholders and top executives in the form of stock buybacks and dividends. And like every major corporation, UPS will pay for that wealth extraction by laying off as many workers as possible. That may reduce the production of goods and services, but so be it if it generates more money for shareholders and executives. In big business today, wealth extraction always comes first. So this is a somewhat lengthy article here. Here I'm going to link. There's Les Leopold. So check. So go subscribe and check this one out. Again, Teamsters Union represents nearly 300,000 UPS hourly workers will fight these recently announced layoffs. Sean O'Brien basically said that UPS agreed and obligated to create 30,000 Teamster jobs under the current National Master Agreement. Yeah, but that runs through like 2028. They don't have to do that right now. He says if UPS wants to continue to downsize corporate management, the Teamsters won't stand in the way, But if they intend to violate our contract or make any attempt to go after hard-fought, good-paying Teamsters jobs, UPS will be in for a hell of a fight. That's nice rhetoric coming out of Sean O'Brien. I don't believe it. I don't believe he would actually fight UPS corporate. And I don't believe that he has any power over whether they decide to close facilities and lay off workers, because he gave that power away when they signed the master agreement 3 years ago. So, again, blaming the Trump tariffs for every sin imaginable may be emotionally satisfying, but letting larger corporations and their Wall Street handlers off the hook when it comes to job destruction, which the Democrats have done for more than a generation, is in large part why we have Trump in the first place. And that's why I brought this article. Okay?
Just remember one thing, the bigger the smile, the sharper the knife.
48th rule of acquisition.
That is correct.
The Ferengis. The capitalism.
Workers of the world, unite.
Beautiful. All right. So finally, we have our friends that are fighting cancer. Shanda got a very positive PET scan result back, thankfully. We were all a little nervous this week. She started her GoFundMe again.
It's not a tumor. It's
Well,
not a tumor at all.
hopefully it's shrinking to the point where we can really say that. Haven't gotten there quite yet, but it's shrinking and it continues to shrink, and she's kicking cancer's ass, but she needs our help. She's raised over $1,000 since she opened it back up. But please, if you're able to support her. I also messaged with our friend Andrew from Action for Assange. They've had to raise their goal a couple of times because they keep hitting it. Thank you so much to everybody who's supporting Anna Marie's fighting brain tumors. They had to move to Cincinnati for 6 weeks for the treatments. Andrew packed up the car and went this week, I believe. And again, anything we can do to help them in their fight, it really is tremendous and important. Tremendous. We need a lot of money because the government's not doing shit to help.
Very nice, very big.
We love Andrew and his daughter, 12-year-old girl. She's got tumors that are impacting her eyesight, her optic nerves. You can read in the GoFundMe that I just linked in the chat about her. But 5 days a week, 6.5 weeks, she's going to be going through treatments. So they're moving to the area. That's going to cost a lot. So anything that anybody can do to help we really need that help. Two other housekeeping. Yes. 2 other housekeeping items. I did a one-on-one this week with my buddy Ryan from the Independent Review. Okay. Ryan has been doing a weekly compilation show on, now it's also co-streamed to the AM Wake Up channel on Fridays. 118 weeks straight, has not missed a week. Love that dude. I remember when he first popped up on my radar, it was like first or second episode. We even co-streamed an episode of the Independent Review way back, about 100 episodes ago or so. We're going to bring it back. And even though Steve runs it on AM Wake Up on Friday mornings at 10 Eastern, and we co-stream it to our Twitter channel, I talked to Ryan, and we're also going to be co-streaming it, or going to stream it on Monday nights, because we don't stream anything on Monday nights on INN. So we're going to be streaming the Independent Review, which is, again, I'm probably not going to send it to YouTube, because I'm a little worried that we could get struck for some of the stuff they talk about there. But it'll go to all the other INN channels. And it's, again, this week it's 4 hours long, weekly compilation. And actually, this week he included some of my conversation with Nature Boy on the Third Rail, but you've got The Last American Vagabond and James Corbett, and he includes segments from AM Wake Up and the What's Truth podcast with Wheezy. And if Whitney Webb is in a segment, you'll see
Wheezy
her.
F, baby.
You'll see her in there. Then you've also got David Icke. There's some David Icke stuff. You got Charlie Robinson and Union of the Unwanted. A lot of Indie Media Award honorees get featured every week. And I'm honored that Ryan decided to include our stuff. Ryan also, by the way, I gave him an Indie Media Award honor for video editing. We created a category for him and Orf and Shut the Fuck Up, Shitlib Joe and Turncoat Don and the guys that the people that make incredible videos like that and compilations. So we spent about 100 minutes talking about his background, why he got into this, talking about raising a family because he's got young kids like I do, and what do we do as far as can we create some kind of a media independent sphere that can appeal to children, because I feel like we're losing our kids to shitlib corporate TV, to the Disney Channel, to YouTube, and there isn't much countering the corporate media out there for our kids. So we talked about some of that stuff. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Also wanted to mention IndieNewsNow.com. That is our news aggregator website where I have plugged in over 100 RSS feeds and Rumble channels. We're going to be bringing in more. We're going to break it up into different categories. We haven't done that yet. But you can also watch this stream live and any INN stream live at IndieNewsNow.com/live. And we're actually live there right now. I'm going to put that up so everybody can see it. So by all means, go check out IndieNewsNow.com.
Bookmark Indie News Now. Bookmark it.
Oh, listen to those smooth tunes. All right. And I'm going to put that link in the chat for everyone to be able to bookmark. That makes it a lot easier. All right. It's not Indie New Snow. It's not New Snow. It's Indie News Now. All right. There's also more about the network and about each member. Okay. Where you can find us on all the socials and all the different people in the network, as well as some of the shows and the newsletters and places you can find us. All right. There's also
coming to a Substack newsletter near you.
Maybe there's a way to support the channel right here, and that goes right to our Stripe, and you can do that through Cash App, Google, Amazon, any credit card, you name it, that comes right to us. There's also the merch store, INN merch store. We're going to be updating our INN merch store and swinging it over to Ryan's merch store. He's been working on one where the prices will be a little bit better, but by all means, pick up an INN beanie for the winter time. But now we've got tank tops. So Anna Mayers likes the tank tops. We've got a Jesse Jet tank top with the Zago Brothers illustration and the INN logo. What's that?
Yep. Tanky tops.
Tanky tops, right.
Yeah.
Get your INN logo t-shirt. I have this one. I love it. It's so comfortable. Oh my God. I think I bought this one, the Comfort Tee. All right. The $23.99 one plus shipping. So comfortable. I have it in black. So by all means, if you're able to, you can also support the channel by picking up some merch. IndieNews.shop. You can get there directly.
And what better way to say I love you than with a gift of a spatula? Oh,
okay. A spatula, sure.
INN spatulas.
All right.
How do we not have INN spatulas, bro?
Spatula City! Spatula City!
We might. Support independent media, and you can do that there. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, or INN newsletter. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. I love you all. Have a good night, everyone.
Keep listening to what Little Boats have to tell you. See you in a bit, fam.
Bye, Felicia.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.